While scrolling through Instagram, my eyes were caught by a photo. I glanced past the shiny, glamorous main characters in the foreground, and behind them, a young man was lazily leaning back on the sofa, his head lowered as he fiddled with his phone. One of his hands propped up on the sofa partially covered his face, but it still revealed his high nose bridge and sharp brow bones. I hesitated for a moment, then clicked open the album that had the picture of Aries, comparing it back and forth a few times. Then, I opened the chat window of Camille, a college classmate I only knew through social media likes, and sent a message. "Hi, is this your friend?" I sent her the specific photo I had circled. For some reason, Camille seemed to have intentionally applied a blurry effect to this area of the picture. Unexpectedly, Camille replied quickly. "What are you asking about him for? You don't need to be so curious about him." I replied, "No, I just think he looks a bit like my boyfriend." It was uncanny how similar they looked. I knew Aries so well that I could even picture the curve of his frown. Soon, Camille bombarded me with a bunch of messages. "Elma, what kind of dream are you having in broad daylight? My husband couldn't even say a word in front of him, and your boyfriend who only earns a few thousand a month, how could he possibly be this guy? What? Are you planning to break up with your boyfriend, the one with nothing?" I interrupted her mocking tone, "I was just asking. Nothing else." Camille had always been competitive. Since she lost to my barefaced photo when we were freshmen and the school was picking a campus beauty, she'd tried to outdo me in everything. Later, she married the CEO of a listed company, while I was focused on dating Aries, the poor young guy. Only then did she reluctantly open up her Instagram for me to see. I switched to my chat with Aries and asked, "Are you almost back?" Aries, who was pinned to the top, replied quickly. He sent a picture of a conference room desk, along with a little cat emoji wiping tears. "I'm still working late. Go to sleep early, don't wait for me." "Thanks for working hard, love you," I replied, sending a hug and 2 kisses before happily putting my phone in my pocket. That's more like it. This is my boyfriend, someone whose monthly salary is only a few thousand. He has nothing but me, and that's enough. He's not part of Camille's world. When I got home, a message popped up, asking me to deliver some documents to the XX Club. I habitually turned around, opened the company reimbursement app, and booked a taxi. As an adult, it's hard to have the night all to yourself. Aside from giving to love, most of it is consumed by the frustrations of work. Stepping out of the car into the chilly wind, I looked around. I had heard of the XX Club. The people who came and went there were far from ordinary. I guessed that my boss probably had connections with their higher-ups, which is why he could enter the club. I pushed open the door, and 2 attendants in suits stood on either side. After I stated my purpose, they respectfully led me in. I expected this. After handing over the documents, I put on a fake smile and respectfully toasted everyone at the table. Most of the time, delivering documents wasn't something I had to do in person. But a banquet like this always needs a pretty face to make it shine. "This is Elma from our technical department. She's here to explain the details." Very professional. As the hand of a partner grazed the back of my hand, I lowered my wine glass and subtly moved it away. A lot of the time, I couldn't flat out reject things, even though I had to endure some ill-intentioned stares. After a few drinks, I found an excuse to step outside for some air. Turning around a corner, I saw a door ajar. The brass door knocker gleamed with a cold, harsh light, and the intricate carvings on the door handle seemed to shimmer in the night. I glanced at it briefly, but as I was about to turn away, a voice came from inside the room. "You've got to be kidding me. Do you think Elma doesn't want to marry Aries because he's poor? Say what you want, but this girl's pretty practical." I went to the bank to check, and it turns out her total savings amount to just 1.95 million. She withdrew it all to pay for a down payment, claiming it's for a future marital home. 1 million? What kind of bathroom can you buy with that? I froze, incredulous, and took a few steps closer to listen. "But you're wearing some ragged clothes. I've been abroad and back, and you're still playing poor cosplay?" I thought of what Aries wore this morning, a new $2,000 down jacket, online purchased pants for a few $100, and the pair of Balenciaga shoes I tracked down through several agents. I looked down at myself. Everything I wore added up to no more than 1,000. Maybe I had misheard. I clenched my hand into a fist, took out my phone, and was about to make a call. Then, I saw a man inside lean forward, casually reaching for a bottle on the table. With this motion, his whole profile was fully revealed, and I saw what he was wearing. I instinctively gripped my coat, my knuckles turning white from the force. My eyes locked onto the scene in front of me, and for a moment, I wanted to speak, but it felt as if my throat had frozen in the cold wind, and no sound came out. Aries glanced at the man who had spoken. I have my own pace. Don't worry about me. Really? What pace is that? Been dating for 5 years? Didn't you say it was just a fun fling, and now you're falling in love with the Cinderella? Aries paused for a moment as he lit a cigarette, then gave a cold smile. What are you talking about? Even if you have feelings, do you really plan on marrying her? My advice is, break up with her early, don't waste her time. Let her marry a good man. Bevis. Aries exhaled a puff of smoke lazily. You talk too much. Bevis gave him a half smile. You're quiet, but next time you make me download some cheap shopping app for that Cinderella of yours, I'll deal with you. At that moment, a young man wearing glasses, with a scholarly demeanor, raised his hand. I think the app's pretty useful. No one paid him any mind. Bevis continued, so, when are you going to tell her the truth? Aries paused, then answered, the day we get engaged. Is it already decided? Yeah. Got a plan for what to say? You're in the wrong here. Nothing to say. Just let Aries disappear. That works too. If it wasn't intentional, a woman like Elma would never get involved with people from our circle. Afterward, give her some money. She did stay with you for 5 years, don't make her feel like she's been shortchanged. These words hit me like they came from another world, charging straight into my mind, without care or hesitation. I stared at Aries, hoping for him to speak up, to say something different. She's different. Elma's different. She's the legitimate girlfriend, the one you've been with for 5 years. But no, he didn't argue. He didn't say anything else. I stood frozen at the door not far away, feeling as if the cold wind had seeped into my bones, swelling my skin. I wanted to peer through the smoke and see his calm face clearly. The begonia tree, its branches bare and weighed down by snow, struggled but couldn't stand tall. I pulled out the home purchase contract I'd kept in my bag, and tears began to fall drop by drop. I quickly wiped them away, afraid I might damage the paper. I'd always thought that Aries didn't dare to bring up marriage with me because he was financially strained, or because he was worried he couldn't get past my parents' approval. That day, when my mom called me, he listened intently. You say his parents are both gone, fine. But his education level is lower than yours, his salary isn't as good as yours, he doesn't have a house, he doesn't have a car, what are you even getting from him? Just his looks? You think with your conditions, you can't find someone better? You should come home, I'll introduce you to some promising young men. Any one of them is better than him. I covered the phone with my hand. He's been working on a project, and he'll get a raise next month. He's ambitious, and he treats me well. I like him. As for the house, we've saved enough for the down payment these past few years. We can afford the mortgage. Things are getting better, right? After that call, I crouched by the bed, pulled out all of my bank cards, and laid them out on the bed. I looked up at him. Let's get married. I have money. If worse comes to worst, I'll support you. Aries seemed a little stunned, and there was a fleeting expression in his eyes that I couldn't understand, but he only said, wait a little longer. At that time, I thought he wanted me to wait, for him to get promoted, for him to come marry me in a grand way. But I didn't understand the look in his eyes back then. Now that I think about it, he was probably laughing. Laughing at how easily I was fooled, laughing at how naive and enthusiastic I was, worth nothing. These past few days, I'd been thinking about how to surprise him. But I never imagined that while I was planning for a warm future with him, he was plotting how to extricate himself from this game, this scam. It's just too ridiculous. I laughed so hard that my tears wouldn't stop. I had to force myself to stay calm, to not push open that door. I took a step back, feeling like I couldn't breathe under the weight of the truth. I lowered my head and pressed the dial button. When I looked up, Aries raised his hand, and the whole room instantly fell silent. I spoke in a normal tone, still not off work? Aries's lazy voice came through the phone, not yet, probably another hour or two. Why, still awake? I wiped my tears, I fell down. I'm at the hospital. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Aries sit up slightly. What hospital? He gestured for someone nearby to hand him his clothes. Aries hung up the phone, put out his cigarette, and his friend asked, "Where are you going?" "You just got here." "My girlfriend's at the hospital." "I'm leaving." "She's just your girlfriend." The sentence wasn't finished, and Aries leaned against the doorframe, glancing back with a cold, fleeting look. That look had no ripples, as cold as a deep well on a winter's night. It made the speaker fall silent, afraid to say more. I didn't go to the hospital. Instead, I took a cab back home. The apartment Aries and I rented was a small one-bedroom unit. There was a bookshelf near the entrance, with a few books on it. Those were the ones from the time I forced Aries to take the adult education exams for his bachelor's degree. My mom was right, his education wasn't great. When I met him, he told me he only had a high school education. Back then, we were both still young. I just thought he was smart, and his life was still long. Surely, if he worked hard enough, he wouldn't stay stuck at that level. At that time, I worked during the day and stayed up late to help him study and practice questions. He'd do one round, and I'd follow along. Because time was tight, we only spent a month and a half to pass the exams. To celebrate, we even searched for discount coupons before going out to eat hot pot. But now, as I read the information Camille had helped me dig up, it just felt absurd. His real name, I can't tell you. You asked about his education? I heard he went to a prestigious school in China, then later studied abroad at an international university. He's still very young. I propped myself up on the couch and pressed my palm to my forehead, feeling a sharp pain in my stomach. The door opened from the outside, and I looked up to see Aries, who had rushed back from the hospital, looking weary. There were countless missed calls from him on my phone. He leaned against the doorframe, breathing a little heavily. I said nothing as I watched him approach, then lifted my hands to cup my face, looking left and right. The tension in my expression finally eased. "Where did you fall?" Although he knew he'd been played, he didn't seem to care. He just played with my fingers and smiled. "I'll put some medicine on it. Otherwise, the wound might heal before you know it." In that moment, maybe I was just too brave and quiet for him to realize the pain I was enduring. I looked at him carefully, as though he had always been this composed, never losing his cool in the face of any tough problem. I used to think that his calm demeanor came from a harsh, difficult youth that had forged his unflappable personality. But I never considered that this kind of leisure might have been nurtured by extreme power and authority. I pulled my hand away and looked ahead. My mom's been urging me to go home for an arranged marriage. As soon as I spoke, Aries froze. The smile he had started to wear didn't even fade before it was replaced by a cold expression. But I turned to face him, tears mixing with the smile, love still shining in my eyes. I told her, "I only want to marry you. I'm waiting for you to marry me." I just looked at him. I hadn't planned on crying, but I didn't know why my tears wouldn't listen. I told her, "We bought a little house, and once we're married, we can move in. Then, we can have a child. You'll love it. Whether it's a boy or a girl, it'll be great. If it's a girl, she'll look like you, with big eyes. If it's a boy, he'll look like me." I lowered my head and pulled out the contract from my bag. "Look, I added your name when I bought the house. Look, Aries, how can you repay me for these 5 years of foolish youth and sincere love? Are you secretly laughing at me, thinking everything I can offer you is nothing compared to what you can throw away in a haze of luxury?" Aries's fingers twitched. He lowered his head to look at the contract, and after a long pause, he looked up. What's wrong?" I feigned casualness. "Isn't it a huge surprise? Now, you never have to worry about my mom rejecting you." The look of shock in Aries's eyes from earlier faded, replaced by his usual careless attitude. "Yes, my baby's so amazing, says she'll support me." His voice was so soft, his tone so thin, that I almost missed it when he said, "Don't cry." What's there to cry about? I never said we wouldn't get married. But Aries, in what way do you plan to marry me? I leaned against the table, dialing a phone number. While I waited, I quietly watched Aries in the kitchen. Compared to me, he was much better at cooking. When the phone connected, I spoke softly, "I've made up my mind. I can go to the US. Time? I was lost in thought, but when I caught Aries' gaze, I snapped back to reality. January 28th. Yes, that's the day. That day was Aries' engagement day. By late night, the emotional pain began to spread into physical pain. I pressed my stomach, biting the back of my hand, and when the pain almost made me lose consciousness, I felt a pair of large hands quickly scoop me up. His usually steady voice sounded panicked. In my dazed state, memories of the past rushed through my mind. Aries and I hadn't had an easy road. Our relationship wasn't always smooth. We'd even gone through a breakup once. It was the second year after we started dating, and there were no signs at all. He suggested we separate. At that time, I was still deeply focused on planning a rare vacation, and when I heard it, I just thought it was absurd. He looked at me with a casual glance, as if it had nothing to do with him. I can't give you what you want. Just moments ago, he had been blaming himself for the burn on my hand. I thought about it for a long time, and apart from the fact that he didn't have money, I couldn't figure out what else could be keeping us apart. It's fine, we'll work hard together. We're still so young. As long as we try our best, we'll be able to have everything we want. And besides, I don't need you to have a lot of money. He interrupted me, gently patting my head, as if we would never meet again. Elma, I'm sorry. I hope you'll meet a better man. At that time, who wasn't young and full of pride, thinking that they couldn't live without someone? So, I didn't try to hold on, didn't cry out, just pretended to be calm and proud. Aries, the truth is, you're just scared. You don't love me as much as you claim. If that's the case, then let's part ways on good terms. If there had been overwhelming love, would he have given up on me without even trying? I thought I was being decisive, rational, and clear-headed. Because I'm the kind of person who weighs things out, and anything that doesn't benefit me should be discarded. But none of that worked with Aries. After we parted, I thought I'd never see him again, but fate brought us together once more. It was an event I'd never imagined myself attending, but by chance, I saw Aries there, dressed in a suit. I froze, staring at him. He opened his mouth, swirling his drink in his hand. I'm the driver. Pretty coincidental, huh? I nodded, said nothing, and walked straight past him. But deep down, I had a strange feeling. Maybe if I missed this chance, I'd never have the opportunity to love him again in this lifetime. The part of me that was more rational lost to emotion, and for the first time in my life, I decided to take a chance. I suddenly stopped, pushed through the crowd, and ran towards him. Aries was still leaning against the shadow of a pillar. When I reached him, I realized he had been watching me the whole time. He just stood there, watching me as I fought against the crowd, using everything I had to reach him. I tilted my head back and asked firmly, I'll only ask this once. Do you want to get back together? If you refuse, then this lifetime is over for us. This time, I would humble myself for love, but only this once. There would be no second chances. Aries lowered his head, silent for a long while. Finally, he picked up his drink and gently tapped it against my raised forehead. You're really foolish. I was foolish, unable to understand the deeper meaning behind his I can't give you what you want or the holes in his disguised indifference. The next time I woke up, I was in the hospital, and the birds outside were already singing at 4 a.m. Aries' skin looked especially pale, and in contrast to the white walls and his dark hair, it appeared even more translucent. He looked somewhat tired, though. Didn't you recover already? Why are you suddenly in so much pain? When he saw me wake up, he gently rubbed my stomach. There was a thermos on the bedside table that I had never seen before. Now that I think about it, there were always things around the house I hadn't seen. He followed my gaze and explained, I ordered porridge for takeout. If you're feeling better, would you like to drink a little? I pulled my gaze away and moved my fingers. Did you know that the stomach is an emotional organ? Maybe it's my emotions that are sick. He chuckled, who bullied you? Tell me, I'll get back at them for you. His usual response. He had said many similar things in the past. I had always brushed them off, thinking he had neither money nor power. What could he do for me? But when I saw him kick the person who had been harassing me verbally right to the ground, I stopped sharing my grievances with him. We couldn't afford the compensation or medical bills from impulsive actions, so I was willing to let go of things I could tolerate. Except for that one time. When I faced workplace harassment and, risking being fired, gathered evidence, posted it, and filed a lawsuit, only to be counterattacked with rumors that pressured me into silence. I broke down, and just when he casually asked, I poured out all my frustrations and cried. But then, miraculously, things started to turn around. The company launched an internal investigation for the first time in history. Soon after, the police got involved, and the manager of the employee who had been harassing me was arrested. I also submitted my resignation. I threw off the blanket, got out of bed, and put on my shoes. He grabbed my wrist. "Where are you going?" "To work." I leaned on the bed, smiled up at him. "I'm feeling better now. I need to go back, get ready, and make sure I don't be late for work. Taking a sick day costs $850, that's too expensive." "Elma, don't be ridiculous. You go to work too." I pushed him away. "No taking sick days." Aries went to consult a doctor, and the doctor respectfully followed him. Many details I had once overlooked were suddenly so clear to me. Like the rich, fragrant porridge in front of me, the homemade wine from a colleague stored in the house, and the handmade pastries I had never seen before. When I was on my way to work that morning, I spotted Aries waiting by the roadside as soon as I came out of the garage. He had told me that he didn't like driving, so after we bought the car, we only used it on weekends and rarely drove it otherwise. After a while, a black Land Rover stopped in front of him, and a driver bent down to open the door for him. The car didn't head to his company. Instead, it entered the city center and drove straight to a quiet residential area. There was a no-entry sign for the residential area, so I could only park at a distance and watch as his car drove in. Sitting in the car, I thought back to the time when I desperately helped him revise his resume while he was looking for a job. Each resume he sent out, every detail, from the job objectives to work experience and personal strengths, had been painstakingly edited by me. At that time, almost every resume passed the company's screening, but he always failed at the interview stage. In the end, only this unremarkable company was willing to hire him. Aries didn't spend much, and he would have his salary paid directly into my account each month. I would prepare his pocket money for him. What seemed like loving support at the time now felt like something he had never cared about. I drove to the old noodle shop I often visited. As soon as I sat down, the owner greeted me warmly. "The usual? How come you're alone today?" This noodle shop had been my favorite since college, and after meeting Aries, I'd taken him there almost every week. "He's busy." "Same as usual, meat sauce noodles, with green onions and cilantro." Halfway through, I casually asked, "By the way, wasn't this area supposed to be demolished a couple of years ago? How is it that the shop is suddenly open again?" The owner glanced at me and wiped the sweat from his neck with his towel. "To be honest, I'm just as confused. One day, they told me to come back and reopen the shop. If not for the compensation I got after the demolition, I wouldn't need to run this noodle shop anymore." I didn't say anything else, quietly finishing the noodles in my bowl. When I got home, I dug out several bags buried at the bottom of my wardrobe. At that moment, I had no doubts about their authenticity. When Aries first gave them to me, I thought he didn't understand, that he just wanted to give me something because everyone else had it. At that time, to avoid hurting his pride, I picked up a bag and strutted in front of him as I headed to work. Before leaving, I even made sure to turn around in front of him one more time. He saw I was happy, raised an eyebrow, and didn't think much of it. Instead, he gave me a few more things to take with me. When I arrived at the office, someone with a sharp eye picked up my bag and looked it over carefully. "This bag is impossible to get, plus the matching accessories, it costs nearly $2 million. You're not secretly a rich woman, are you?" I casually tugged at the strap of the bag and said, "It's a knockoff, not worth anything." Later, I casually added, "Even knockoffs aren't cheap. Don't waste your money on these. I don't need them." Aries glanced at me and smiled. "Keep it, it might come in handy." It did come in handy. I had saved up for 5 years and still couldn't afford a house, but now, I only needed 2 or 3 bags. I blinked, and the emotions from last night that had been lingering in my chest suddenly surfaced. It was frustration. I clearly realized how unwilling I was to accept it. "Aries, if you were just lying and playing with me, I wouldn't feel this frustrated. But you, in the endless web of lies, mixed in a bit of real affection, who are you trying to trap?" "I will regret it." I will regret the youth I spent charging forward. When I realized this, I thought, I should finish some unfinished dreams before I fall off the cliff. From the bedroom to the kitchen, to the living room, I moved along familiar paths, slowly removing the traces of what had once been. But this rental apartment had too many memories and too much love. As the sunset slanted into the bedroom, the warm yellow light flickered, and the man wrapped all his unused strength around me. It was the night in the snowstorm when we laughed as we ran back home, hurriedly pushed open the door, and kissed until we nearly suffocated. It was a bottle of $12 cocktail, drunk to a light buzz. I cupped his face and kissed him delicately until I melted into his arms, and we collapsed together on the sofa, hearing the laughter vibrating from his chest. At this moment, I decided to leave the memories where they belonged, only in the past. The door lock turned, and I looked back. A stranger stood in the entryway, Aries. Though he looked at me as he always had, I knew it wasn't him. He walked over, crouched beside me, and glanced at the suitcase at my feet. "Are you going on a business trip?" I shook my head. "Packing some things I don't need." Today, he was dressed even worse than yesterday's shabby clothes, though his underwear was more expensive. I do care about the quality of my intimate wear. Maybe the greatest hardship of his rich, privileged life was that, out of boredom, he played with a poor girl. Not only did he have to lower his lifestyle, but he also had to work hard at making up lies. Thinking about it, I suppose I'm not the one at a loss. Aside from being a liar, my boyfriend had good looks, a great body, good skills in bed, and was a fantastic cook. "Will you go with me to try on wedding dresses tomorrow, Aries?" His eyebrows and eyes, bathed in the light, looked like they were dusted with silver frost. Even when he furrowed his brows, it didn't detract from his good looks. He smiled, a little helpless. "I'm still thinking about the whole marriage thing. Don't you think trying on wedding dresses is a bit too soon? Just trying them on, it doesn't mean we have to get married." "What are you afraid of?" Maybe it was the first time I said not getting married with such a playful tone, as if I suddenly didn't care at all. Aries froze for a moment. He hesitated before pulling me into his arms, trying to cheer me up with a playful smile. "Are you mad at me?" "I'm just thinking, this road hasn't ended yet. Who knows what the end will look like? Maybe we're not right for each other. Maybe the rest of my life belongs to someone else." He squeezed my fingers, laughing through his frustration. "Shut up. I'll go with you. You happy now?" I didn't turn around to hug him with joy like I used to. Instead, I lowered my head and continued packing. Camille texted me, asking why I kept asking about him. She even advised me, if you're going to cheat, at least find someone you can actually meet. "Why do you keep asking about him?" "He was just with his fiancée trying on wedding dresses a little while ago." That's when I realized, during the time he said he was on a business trip, he had gone to try on wedding dresses with another woman. The bridal store was a last-minute appointment for the evening. I spent the entire day quietly sitting in the living room, not going anywhere, until the evening when Aries came home from work. Marrying Aries had once been the dream that carried me through my entire youth. I used to fantasize about walking towards him in a white wedding dress, holding a bouquet of flowers. Like now, amidst the bustling crowd, I would look at him, eyes red, and ask, "Do I look good?" Of course, I would. What girl in a wedding dress isn't beautiful? It's one of the most beautiful moments of her life. Aries didn't speak. He turned his head and looked out the window. People passed by on the street. It was a view he never noticed before. In his peripheral vision, there stood a girl who wore the wedding dress just for him, but he suddenly lost the courage to look back. "Aries, turn around and look at her. This might be the only time, and the last time, she will no longer belong to you." His engagement party was a grand affair, with guests filling the room. Camille, for the first time, had entered the legendary family's world. The engagement party was held in an upscale hotel, opulent yet secretive. She stood beside her husband, and finally saw the man that Elma had been asking about all this time. The man was dressed in a luxurious handmade suit, and his dark red bow tie accentuated his noble face, giving him a somewhat sensual look. She didn't have a chance to talk to him, of course. As she stepped outside for some fresh air, she looked through the crowd and caught sight of him. He had just answered a phone call, his brow furrowed. Camille, holding her diamond-studded clutch, overheard the conversation, and suddenly, a name jumped out at her. She tugged at her husband Chase's sleeve in disbelief. You mean Elma? The girl he's been seeing outside is called Elma? The one I told you about, the girl from my school? Chase flicked the ash from his cigarette, uninterested. I don't know. Probably. Camille remembered how Elma had been asking about him all these days. Life really is full of coincidences. She had heard the whole story of this affair by now. So, does everyone in your circle know? Does everyone know he's been pretending to deceive a girl for 5 years? Yeah, they've heard the rumors. But no one cares. It's just a fling. He'll come back eventually. At that moment, Aries hurriedly walked past. Camille suddenly stopped him, shouting angrily, "Scumbag, stop right there." Chase quickly stepped forward and grabbed her. What are you doing? You've never liked Elma. Why act like a hero now? I don't like her, Camille glared at Aries, but that doesn't mean I can't sympathize with her. 5 years, that's 5 whole years. Not 5 hours, not 5 days. It's the most precious and youthful 5 years of a woman's life. You rich and powerful people, is it not boring unless you trample over things? I'll say it, Elma's so beautiful, so capable. Back in school, boys lined up to chase her. Wealthy men outside of school threw money at her just to take her out to dinner. But after graduation, it's like she was cursed, no one even pursues her anymore, and she's stuck with a poor boyfriend. Turns out, you've been blocking all her suitors from the start. Chase tugged at her sleeve. Stop talking. You're ruining our project with your mouth. Camille elbowed him back. I have no respect for you. You all laugh at Elma, but I'm laughing at you. You're a coward. Aries didn't get angry. He just looked at her calmly. When did she find out? The woman didn't speak, and Aries didn't press her further. He had just received a call from the landlord. Isn't today the day you're supposed to move out? I'm here to check the apartment, but there's no one here. He had more pressing matters to attend to. A few days ago, he had hesitated but told her, let's have a proper conversation when I get back from this business trip. At the time, Elma responded with a gentle smile, saying okay. She was so obedient, so quiet, trapping all her hysterical screams in her own body. Aries took a step out, then turned back to speak to the lady, whom he had never met before. If I had been myself from the start, maybe this story would have lasted 5 seconds, not 5 years. Camille didn't understand this strange comment. She saved it on her phone to repeat later. The car sped toward the rented apartment, but halfway there, it suddenly changed lanes. Then it rushed toward the airport like a maniac. The flight had already started boarding, and the flight attendants greeted each passenger with sweet voices. I had blocked Aries on all platforms, locking the past away in that tiny apartment. Maybe he had already noticed, or maybe he was too busy with all the greetings and farewells. He'd probably only remember to deal with other things after the engagement banquet. No surprises, the plane took off as scheduled. As the wings sliced through the clouds, the roar of the engines drowned out everything else. The unresolved plot lines and the judgmental eyes of the world were lifted high and gently set down. Before the plane took off, Camille, full of righteous anger, had called me. Why are you running away? He's the one who deceived you. You didn't hit him or yell at him, and now you turn off your phone and run abroad? You're not the one who made the mistake. If I were you, no matter which family he's from, I'd just drive straight into his engagement party. No one's getting away easy. At worst, just make a scene. With his wealth, if he let a little money slip through his fingers, you and your descendants wouldn't have to work for generations. It's all about the money, who cares about love? You'd be an idiot not to take it. I always thought she hated me, so I figured if she found out I'd been deceived by a man for 5 years, she'd probably laugh at me. Thanks, Camille. My voice was soft, but firm. Even though some bad things happened, I don't want to deny those 5 years. They were 5 years where I gave all my heart, and I don't want to let them end in a distorted way. Camille didn't respond. She, more than anyone, knew that some things weren't about avoiding a fight, it was just that fighting would be pointless. Everyone knew what had happened, but no one cared. Even if I caused a scene, so what? They'd watched the joke for so long, there was no need to serve up more laughter. Over there, even if everyone knew I had been wronged, no one would speak up for me, no one would stand up for me. Besides, with his family background, if things escalated and ruined his reputation, the consequences were beyond someone like me to bear. During the 6 months I spent abroad, I returned to the lab and did what I was best at. Dylan, the senior who had invited me, often sighed, "Why did you waste 5 years on other things? You could have made achievements earlier." I recorded the data, only smiling faintly as I said, "Everyone takes a detour sometimes, but as long as you turn back in time, everything can still be okay, right?" I'd allow myself to encounter some thorns on my long journey through life, even if crossing them left me bleeding. But who can say that won't lead to a completely new version of me? As long as I still have the courage, I'll keep moving forward boldly, no matter how long or bright the road ahead. Time was busy, so busy that I didn't have time to think about anyone. Then, one day, an international express package knocked on my door. After 6 months, I received this mysterious delivery. I opened it to find 2 full home purchase contracts, both with my name on them. One was for a high-end apartment in the city center, and the other for the wedding apartment where only the down payment had been made. The apartment I was living in now was quiet, especially at night. For the first 1 or 2 months after moving in, I barely managed to sleep. I never lied to myself that I didn't have expectations. I also didn't foolishly wait for him to suddenly appear before me. In a foreign land, on some random street, would I ever turn around and see him? Sometimes, on a quiet night, when I heard the sound of tires on the pavement, I would instinctively pull back the curtains, only to see an empty world outside. Then I realized, someone like him would never lose his mind over anyone. Those 5 years in an ordinary person's life were already the exception. His life had gained so much, and what he lost was insignificant. It was right to lightly pick it up, then casually let it go. I locked the 2 contracts back in the drawer without ever reaching out to him. I knew from the start that my time abroad wouldn't be long, but I didn't expect it to be this soon. Dylan confirmed again, "It's time. This is the best opportunity. Someone from home has contacted us, and most importantly, the entry permit has been approved. Who knows when we'll get another chance?" I nodded, "Then let's go back." Dylan's company was registered in City B. With an established product base and big investments pouring in, everything at the company was progressing quickly. The faster things moved, the more hands were needed. I was so busy, I hardly had time to rest. Besides the technical work, I had to be involved in recruiting. At this point, Dylan told me the investor wanted to meet. "He specifically asked for you." It's strange. I should have expected it. The investor Dylan had frequently mentioned 6 months ago had an unusually good temper and had never asked about any company matters. I adjusted my pen cap, hesitated, and asked, "Can I not go?" Dylan gritted his teeth, "If it were anyone else, I could block them for you, but not this one." I never imagined I'd encounter Aries again, in whatever situation it might be. Like his friend said, unless it was a planned coincidence, Aries and I would always be at opposite ends of a revolving door, never crossing paths again. "This is Mr. Aries. This is Elma, who handles our technical matters." It was her joining a year ago that allowed us to move so quickly. The Aries before me was nothing like the old one. It was as if the perfectly tailored suit had cut off his past. He was still casual, still relaxed, but completely different. Now, his nonchalance and carelessness were full of distance, making it hard to approach him. But his eyes were just as intense and direct. I extended my hand with a polite smile. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Aries. I'm Elma." Aries still had his hands in his pockets and didn't respond. Instead, he looked me up and down with piercing eyes. Without hiding it, he said, "I want to talk to her alone." Dylan opened his mouth, but quietly stepped out. As he opened the door, he met 2 pairs of eyes. Bevis sent him off. The other pair of eyes curiously asked, "What's going on?" Bevis succinctly explained, Aries was restricted from leaving the country, so he came up with a way to get her to come back. Are they going to get back together? How could that be? With his mom in the way, this girl can't get through. Before, his mom didn't care about her, thought she was insignificant. But now she's making demands. She doesn't have to marry, but she can't just marry anyone. Aries reached out to me, as if I had just gone on a trip like usual. "Are you calm now? Can we make up?" I furrowed my brows and stared at him without moving. This was my fault. I'm sorry, he said, habitually pinching my fingers. I slowly lowered my eyes and scanned his 10 fingers. At first, there were many questions I wanted to ask, like why me, why 5 years? But then I thought, asking wouldn't change anything. Aries, I think we've already broken up. I've already let you go. You don't need to worry about how to keep pretending, or how to disappear without reason. Although by now, I could no longer tell where the line was between your pretenses and your true feelings. I never agreed with your decision. You didn't need to agree, just like how, back then, I never agreed with the way you entered my life. Time dulls the pain, but it takes so much time. At least, a year when I couldn't sleep, was far from enough to heal the wounds. Don't come looking for me again. I'm begging you. I took a step back. Let's end things here, as decently as we can. What if he took a step closer, gently wiping away the tear from the corner of my eye with his thumb. What if I insist? I hadn't thought about that possibility, so I panicked, trying to figure out what I could do. But then he suddenly smiled silently, raising a hand to cover my eyes, which were darting around nervously. Don't be afraid. I wouldn't do that to you. Elma, you still owe me a wish. If you're willing. I'll agree. Our relationship. He couldn't bring himself to say it, the words of finality never coming. I should have seen this coming, but I had dragged my feet, hoping to find a way out. After that, I didn't see Aries for a long time. But the fact that I owed him a wish hung between us, like an invisible thread, pulling at both ends. He didn't come, I didn't fulfill it, as if holding on to it meant there might still be something left. During that waiting period, I met Camille. The surprising part was, she had gotten divorced. Surprised, huh? She sat across from me, her expression calm. I didn't see it coming either. I never doubted that he loved me, but loving me didn't stop him from loving someone else. Everyone told me to turn a blind eye to it, that money's the most important thing. The women out there, they're just for men, to pass the time. Which man in this circle doesn't have a lover or two? But I couldn't do that. I couldn't bear it. I can't stand sharing my man with anyone else. She told me she took half of the assets from her ex-husband, and now her life was carefree. Time passed, and then I got a message from Aries. I remembered those years, how he would never make a wish on his birthday. He would always push the cake to me, asking me to make a wish, and I would always loudly announce my wish. For example, I wish Aries and Elma would always be together, never to be separated. He never had any wishes of his own, nothing he wanted from the world. So I couldn't figure out what wish he wanted me to grant. Until I walked into that rented apartment again. The layout was unchanged, even the angle where the sunlight slanted in was the same. There were several dishes on the table, and I could hear the sound of pots and pans clinking from the kitchen. I unconsciously walked over, my muscles recalling the countless times before, leaning against the doorframe, looking at the person in the kitchen. He didn't turn around, just like before, without looking back, he said, "There's one more dish, we'll be eating soon." Aries wasn't a great cook, but compared to me, at least it was edible. I ate slowly, and he just watched me. It was like those years, the most ordinary days, yet they felt like the end of the world because we were about to part. Could you cook before? I asked, a question that had bothered me for a long time. No, he shook his head. At first, my nanny taught me. When I told her I wanted to learn how to cook, she was so scared she checked my forehead, thinking I had a fever and had gone crazy. Actually, your cooking isn't that good. But you always ate it happily. The room grew dim, and neither of us turned on the lights. We sat in a corner of the carpet on the sofa. I should go, I said. I wasn't entirely without sincerity these years. I crouched down, reaching out to trace his features with my finger, inch by inch. So, will we get married? We wouldn't. That's why you stayed silent, unable to make any promises. But if I asked the Aries from back then, he would have said yes loudly. I smiled at him, tears falling drop by drop. He loved me so much, he would have said yes, and we would have gotten married and grown old together. You know better than anyone that the ending was always set, only the process was different. Sometimes, I wish there really was that Aries from 5 years ago. He pulled me into his arms, an embrace that felt like it would melt us into each other's bones and blood. One wrong step, and every step after it was wrong. Some people, we were never meant to meet, to know, or to love. But you insisted on breaking down the walls, charging until we were exhausted, and in the end, we were left battered and broken. He let go of me and gently patted my head. The things I gave you, keep them. That way, when you find another boyfriend with less money, he won't make you suffer. But he can't take advantage of your wealth, being lazy and unambitious. Before you get serious with someone, at least ask about his background. Ask about his salary, his job. If you can't find out, let me know through someone. Don't just dive in without asking anything. I will. I knew he was watching me, but I didn't turn around. I walked away, step by step. My phone rang, and I answered it. Before, I forced you to break up with him, and you wouldn't. Now, you say it's over just like that. Did he bully you? No, he didn't bully me. It's just that we weren't right for each other anymore. Is it about the money? I've thought about it. If he doesn't have money, then he doesn't. Do you really think I keep nagging about this because I'm being materialistic? I just don't want you to suffer with him. Mom, we haven't been in touch much since we broke up. I can't find him anymore. How is that possible? How is it not possible? Some people are just passing through, and their weight is so heavy, so deep, that they become the boldest stroke in the chapter of your life, one that's destined to be unforgettable for years to come. Aries wasn't the type to chase after people. Some people, if you can't hold on to them, letting go is the more dignified choice. But losing someone is a process, one that slowly tears apart your thoughts. Even though he didn't let the damp emotions spread unchecked. That day, quite by chance, the nanny suddenly asked him, "Does your little girl still eat those date pastries?" "I bought fresh dates, I'm sure they'll taste even better now." He stopped in his tracks, and the regret of loss rushed in like a tide, the pain creeping into his chest slowly. No. I don't have a little girl who loves date pastries anymore. The end. Extra chapter. On New Year's Eve, the entire city was filled with a joyful atmosphere, and the hotel was bustling with guests coming and going. The Bevis Group's gathering was on the hotel's top floor, where the private rooms were reserved for a select few. Aries had become lazier in recent years, rarely going out. Despite Bevis's repeated requests, he finally showed up just in time. Among their group, aside from the few steadfast people, many faces were always fleeting, like the wind. Tonight, there were several people Aries had never met before. When he arrived, the room was lively, and Bevis and the others never disclosed Aries' identity to outsiders. So, when Aries took a seat, the others merely gave him a symbolic nod, thinking he was just an ordinary friend of Bevis. A server took Aries' coat, and he found a quiet corner of the couch to sit, lighting a cigarette with his fingers. Someone approached him with a drink, trying to strike up a conversation. Aries raised his cigarette, his expression half smiling, half indifferent, not saying a word. Bevis slapped the person's hand and said, "Go over there, don't bother him." Everyone understood, one simple sentence, even though the person's identity was unclear, was enough to make them wary. No one dared to approach again. At that moment, there was a commotion from the other side of the room. Someone shouted, "Don't, Fionn, we're already out here, just having some fun, she's so cute." A warm voice politely refused, "Sorry, I have a girlfriend." Aries glanced over, seeing a handsome young man in a suit, looking somewhat clueless in this setting. Next to him was a girl in a short skirt, who might have touched him, only to be waved away. When Gao Minming saw Aries looking, he casually introduced, "He's from B City, the young master of P Group. I heard he just returned from abroad and is about to take over the company, currently being tested by his father. His business this time is negotiating with Greg Sky, but he ended up bringing them here." Aries wasn't particularly interested and turned his gaze away. Perhaps because of his family background, when Aries was the same age as this boy, he never knew what it was like to be gentle or polite. Back then, he was far from the easygoing person he was now, acting impulsively, with no one daring to provoke him. At that moment, someone joked, "Where's your girlfriend? She must be as beautiful as a goddess, to make you stay so faithful." Fionn smiled, thinking of his girlfriend, and happiness radiated from his eyes. "She's from S City. To me, she's the most beautiful, I won't compare her to anyone else." The mention of S City cut through the bustling crowd and reached Aries' ears. He kept his eyes lowered, his hand pausing mid-motion. "I'm leaving," he muttered, grabbing his coat from the side and draping it over his arm. He looked up, his expression neutral as he walked out. Bevis watched him leave but didn't try to stop him. He merely glanced at Fionn. Only Bevis knew that the girl Ares once dated was also from S-City. Ares walked out the door, not driving. The black long coat he wore didn't offer much warmth. It had been many years, and he rarely thought about that time anymore. In fact, he tried hard to forget it. But tonight was an accident, a trivial one, yet it seemed to shatter the high wall he had painstakingly built around himself. It was on another New Year's Eve, years ago, when he and Elma walked through the snow. Their footsteps were uneven, deep in some places, shallow in others. At that time, Elma was in her early 20s, in the prime of her life, with no makeup and no need for decoration. She was simply the most beautiful scenery. He had never walked that path before, but her joy was infectious. He forgot to complain about the snow beneath his feet. "Ares, this is our first year together. We still have so many more years ahead of us." In his life, he had received countless acts of love. His parents had given everything to raise him, and the elders of the family pampered him to the core. Most people were shallow. Perhaps because of his appearance or his proud family background, countless people showered him with affection. As a result, he was indifferent to love and never craved it. Even when Elma gave him such passionate love, he always responded with a mild indifference. But now, when he peeled away all the sweet exterior, he realized that among all his past relationships, only Elma had loved the version of him that was utterly unremarkable. A simple, pure Ares, without any bright embellishments. The love Elma gave him came with no strings attached. His mother never meddled in his affairs, knowing full well that he was not the type to be sentimental. This time, however, the duration of her curiosity surprised her. She was arranging flowers when the thought suddenly crossed her mind, and she asked casually, "Do you plan to have her as your daughter-in-law?" Ares grinned mischievously, "Well, if you don't mind." His mother, calm and composed, responded while trimming the flowers, "Are you joking?" Ares stopped smiling. "Because you wouldn't approve." "Of course not," she said, putting down the scissors and looking up. "But if you insist on marrying her, I won't make life difficult for her. You should know, though, that I won't acknowledge her. She will never be recognized by the family. If she marries you, she must be prepared to endure a lifetime of hardships. That's the price she'll have to pay. You really think your little bit of love is worth it? Do you believe she would be willing to lower herself and endure all of this for you?" A servant came over to remove a vase, and his mother wiped her hands, patting his shoulder as she walked away. "If only you had thought this through earlier, you wouldn't have trouble convincing me." It all started as a whim. A little genuine affection bloomed, and suddenly it seemed as though it was a love as deep as the ocean. His mother came from an influential background, and while she appreciated all excellent women, that didn't mean she would allow anyone to break the rules. In her world, everything was tangled in a web of interests and relationships. One wrong move, and the consequences were unimaginable. But if her son insisted on pushing it, with a determination that couldn't be swayed, maybe she wouldn't be able to stand in his way. But she knew her son well. He had everything he wanted for 20-something years. He wouldn't force things to the point of no return. That's why, for all these years, she had kept her eyes half closed and never interfered. Otherwise, why would the nanny have the audacity to discuss that girl with her? The nanny was someone she had carefully selected, yet one day, she came to her, looking flustered, and asked, "I heard your family's cook has a special recipe that helps with sore throats." Ares said his throat was sore after a cold, and the medicine wasn't working. "Maybe I should try your recipe for him?" The recipe had been passed down by her own mother, and it was indeed incredibly effective. Her mother didn't respond, and the nanny awkwardly walked away, rubbing her apron. That evening, when she was practicing calligraphy, she had a sudden impulse. She wrote down the recipe, stroke by stroke, and gave it to the nanny. As Ares turned the corner of the street, he realized there was no way forward. He aimlessly began walking back. His hands in his pockets, head lowered, he absent-mindedly traced the scar of his ring with his fingers. He had never met anyone as rational and clear-headed as Elma. She never wasted effort on things with no outcome. If she had known his real identity from the start, a person as intelligent as her would have seen the end result immediately. And that ending wouldn't be a happy one, so she would never have even attempted to try. She would have calmly crushed any budding affection, preventing any possibility. He took out his phone, planning to call the driver over, when someone unexpectedly bumped into his arm. "I'm sorry, are you okay?" Aries froze for a moment. That voice, he'd heard it in his dreams countless times over the years. He looked down to see a much more mature Elma. Her features were softer, but her eyes still held that same clear, serene water-like depth. "Elma," he reached out and tightly grabbed her hand, unsure of what to say. In that moment, Aries suddenly felt like everything was as it should be. Only by holding her hand would the restless, wandering heart inside his chest find a brief moment of calm. Elma looked up at him, as if meeting an old friend she hadn't seen in years. "Hi, long time no see," she said politely, pulling her hand away. The distance between them, the formality, it was too much. But this was who they were now. He shook his head, still stunned. "How did you end up here?" Just then, Elma suddenly raised her hand, seemingly waving to someone behind him. Aries stiffened and casually turned to look. He narrowed his eyes, then saw the man clearly. It was the young man he'd once thought was naive and silly, the one he'd dismissed as overly gentle and unremarkable. Elma nodded at him, then without hesitation, hurried away, moving so fast that Aries couldn't even catch a whiff of her scent. She still glanced at him, but when her eyes met his, there was no longer that warm, passionate spark, no longer the bright gleam of love. Aries watched, helpless, as the woman he once loved, like a little bird, joyfully, freely, and confidently ran into another man's arms. He smiled as the man embraced her, wrapping her tightly with a large scarf, bending down with a smile to look at her. Aries could almost feel the man's affection and love pouring out, even from this distance. That was when it hit him, Elma hadn't come to a city in many years. Back then, he had transferred all his shares to her, making her the second largest shareholder of the company, giving her more freedom, like the freedom to reject any business trips to a city. But she still came to a city with Fion on business, and waited for him on snowy nights. Aries was reluctant to admit it, but he knew, this meant she had let go of everything in the past. To her, a city was no longer a place full of scars, it had become just another ordinary city. In the midst of the heavy snow, he opened his palm. Nestled inside was a delicate pearl earring that had fallen when she bumped into him earlier. In the grand landscape of his life, Elma might be the most vivid and unforgettable scene. But now, he probably no longer had the right to linger in this scene. The end.